What's going on, everybody? Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Kieran. I help people using a spiritual perspective. And yes, I am still alive. I'm still here. I'm still inside of a place and still existing simultaneously with all of you. Probably. By the time you watch this, you might be dead. Well, of course, if you're watching this and you're dead, then you're not watching this, which is a whole separate issue we can get into at a different time. But for today, we're going to focus on something which has been the bane of my existence for probably my existence, and that would be diets. Okay? Diets, put simply, are fucking stupid. Now, excuse the curse words. I know we're all supposed to be in a safe spiritual space, and we're not supposed to curse and all that stuff, but I'll be honest, guys, diets piss me off. They piss me off quite a bit. They make me a little bit angry, a little bit uncomfortable, and that is because diets themselves are designed to fail. Now, in this spiritual world, in this spiritual perspective that we often are supposed to have and perceive things with, diets exist in such a way, such a concept that I think almost contradicts the notion of spirituality. So what I mean by that is diets involve a discipline, a regimental 3D or material way of looking at things in order to often change the appearance or shape of what we are. Now, spirituality, conversely, is a lot of acceptance. It's a lot of understanding who you are, getting to the emotional or spiritual root or cause of your suffering, and accepting and integrating that into your life and doing it in a very non-linear way or pattern, which is the exact opposite of a diet. A diet is a way of putting yourself in a box and making sure that you do this, whereas spirituality is almost removing a box and making sure that you're free-flowing and everywhere and all at once, okay? Now, that, I think those ideas, they contradict each other quite a bit. So diets can become a very antagonizing sort of force in our lives, especially for those of us trying to change something. So even removing the spiritual labels, the spiritual perspective, the awakening process, diets are difficult, fundamentally, I think, for a lot of people because of the discipline aspect. Now, discipline's hard. Nobody likes to be disciplined. Well, some people like to be disciplined, but usually in very sexual ways. Nobody, in the way that I'm talking about, likes to be disciplined. Essentially, they don't want to do things they don't want to do, right? You don't really want to eat healthy, or you don't want to eat a bunch of vegetables. You don't want to stop drinking soda. You don't want to stop filling your face with Reese's peanut butter cups and Skittles and candies and all kinds of pastries and all the delicious, yummy stuff that makes this life worth living. Nobody really wants to give up those things and focus on maybe eating something that's a little bit healthier in a balanced, normal, pattern kind of way throughout their lives, right? Especially those of us who are younger. We don't still see the immortality as a real thing that's going to happen. As in, our bodies will get older, will decay, things will stop working as they used to, etc. Okay? So we tend to think that diets are something we can ignore, or they're just difficult in general, and we don't really necessarily want to do them. And I think that the whole reason, other than this sort of concept of discipline, is so difficult is because of what we're talking about. We're talking about a desire and a want. Simultaneously, there is a desire to do something. And let's say it's a positive desire, a desire to get in better shape, to look better, to feel better, to have a six-pack, I don't know, to have a flatter stomach, to have more muscle, to lose some weight, to gain some. It could be any number of things, right? And feeling better. It's all relative to the individual. It's a good desire, nice desire, a normal desire. Lots of people have that desire. And then the opposite desire is to keep on being a fat little piggy. That's not a very nice way of putting it, is it? But of course, we have another desire to maintain the same status quo, to keep eating yummy, delicious, sugary, fattening pastries and chocolates and all kinds of stuff. And that's also very normal. It's also very normal to want to continue doing things the same way, even if it hurts you. Because typically there's some kind of involvement going on there, whether it's just taste, if it's an emotional issue where you're using it to escape pain, maybe both. There's all kinds of stuff that can exist with that. Again, up to the individual. So you have two desires basically existing within us at the same time, and they both contradict each other, just like the idea of diets themselves and spirituality, which I was talking about before. And yet so many spiritual people, or people who claim to be spiritual, many of these gurus and all kinds of Instagram people that, have these lifestyles and stuff, you see them and they're all vegans and vegetarians, and they're all good looking and they have perfect white teeth and they're symmetrical features and they're always living in some lavish lifestyle, and they're always telling everybody how to live your life and how to be grateful for everything from their house in the Hamptons. Awesome, very cool to be told to be grateful for things and to look on the sunny side when they themselves are living somewhere very sunny. It's easy to say that to people, very easy. So a lot of these spiritual people have a lifestyle that I've always found impossible to maintain, get into, to resonate with, to manage. I don't want to be a vegan. I have no interest in being a vegan. I don't necessarily want to be a vegetarian either. I like vegetables, not all vegetables, I admit. I don't even like most vegetables. I think I like corn, peas, carrots, broccoli, cucumbers. That's probably the only vegetables I like. Now, that's not a huge variety of vegetables. I am a very boring white person, I'm afraid. I'm sorry to disappoint you guys. But that's still enough vegetables for me to eat, okay? So it's not that I don't like healthy foods. It's just that I don't like a lot of foods. So I have no interest in being a vegetarian or a vegan. And yet, you see some of these spiritual people, you look at these retreats, and all of these retreats are very vegetarian, very vegan. You won't see any meat. You won't see anything processed. You won't see any snacks. You won't see any sugars. You won't see any of this stuff. So it leads one to believe that in order to be spiritual, in order to master the spiritual awakening, one must master their diet. One must become a vegetable. Well, that seems kind of offensive. Maybe don't become a vegetable, but one must become the healthy version of themselves. One must get into a regiment of vitality. And I think that that's a nice idea. But how come all of the spirituality that's being presented to us is all the same type of thing? We can either look at that two ways. We can either say, yeah, in order to be spiritual and be awakened and to master it and be some sort of guru or master of spirituality, we need to eat like this and do these things. Or you look at it and say, it seems like this lifestyle that's being presented to me is being presented to me from someone else's viewpoint. Someone else who has experienced something is telling the rest of us that they also need to do that as well. And that's a little bit less black and white. It's a little bit more vague, a little bit more up to the individual. And so when people see these ideas, these identities of these other people, these health gurus, these health nuts, as people refer to them, or these very spiritual types of people with all the stuff that they eat and maintain and do for their bodies, it seems like it's this expectation that I think is very hard to live in, to get into, to, forgive the pun, digest. Just doesn't really resonate. It's hard to swallow, hard to stomach. So the diets are just so stupid because we're treating diets as an expectation. We're treating diets as something we're supposed to do. We're treating diets as a direct connection to spirituality, as if like the diet, the lifestyle, the image that appears to others through a screen, much like this one that is showing my stupid looking face, much like this screen here, we have to exist and appear like that, right? And I think that's a dangerous idea. I think all of those are dangerous ideas because diets are not meant to be like that. Even the word diet and the idea of a diet itself is so limiting because a diet is saying, it almost doesn't even make it seem temporary. It doesn't make it, it just says like it's a forever thing. It's so boring. It's such this old antiquated idea of discipline and you have to do it. And because you have to do it, of course you don't want to because nobody wants to do anything they're obligated to do. Nobody. It doesn't even matter if you want to do it. It doesn't matter. It's like when you get an, an ultimatum. People who get ultimatums always choose the option that is, maybe you could say the antagonistic option of the two, right? A partner, a girlfriend, family member, friend, whatever. They say, okay, well, it's either that you stay my friend and you don't talk to this other person, or we're just not friends anymore. And it's always, people are always going to be like, okay, well, then I guess we're not friends anymore. Nobody ends up choosing the insane, ultimatum. Nobody chooses that. Even if a part of them wants to, or likes that person, or whatever the example is, nobody chooses that. Nobody. So it's the same thing with a diet. It's the same thing. And it just goes against spirituality. The concept of it, the free flow of it all. And yet all these spiritual people end up they appear to be so spiritual. They appear to be so in touch with their body. And I'm sure that all that's very important. I can tell you that yoga is definitely a helpful thing to do. Stretching is definitely a helpful thing to do. Eating a healthier diet is definitely a helpful thing to do. It's all logical and great. But when it comes down to the actual process of doing it and trying to wrap your mind around it, for me and I think many other people who are inclined to be more sensitive and emotional and free-flowing and spiritual, for lack of a better word, it becomes a concept that's very difficult to do because of the expectation and the obligation, because of the ultimatum. An ultimatum shouldn't exist in spirituality. We shouldn't be forced to do something. It shouldn't have to be eat chocolate or not eat chocolate, because we're always going to choose eat chocolate, always, all the time. It shouldn't be no soda or soda, because we're always going to drink soda. The ultimatum doesn't make any sense. And maybe some people are able to discipline themselves into submission and just squash other parts of themselves down and maintain such a great linear process of doing. And you know what? For those people, that's awesome. Maybe that works for them. Maybe they're able to compartmentalize different aspects of themselves. I don't know. And I frankly don't really care, because it never has worked for me. It has never worked for me, and it often doesn't work for a lot of people. So yeah, maybe I'm not a very disciplined person. I will be the first to admit to you guys that I'm probably a shit person at discipline, to be honest. I would never be like a good boot camp trainee or an instructor, probably. Either or. Anything to do with boot camps I really would not be good at. Maybe cooking, possibly. I could cook for a boot camp, maybe. But other than that, I don't think I'd be great in that environment. So maybe the discipline aspect does work for other people. But for me, maybe removing the ultimatum removes the concept of a diet. Maybe if we don't place pressure on ourselves to fit into a narrative, to fit into a box, which is what a diet is, then maybe we will become more free with ourselves. Maybe it's not about, well, I'm going to, choose a can of Coke over water because I have to. Maybe it becomes a feeling. Maybe it becomes a natural inclination, a leaning towards, a path that is now arguably natural. Because maybe we would always choose the healthier option if we were left up to our own choices, rather than feeling like the choices are being placed for us. Because that's often when we start to suffer, right? We often suffer because we feel like in life the things that are going on are not our own doing, are not our own choice. When we cause suffering for ourselves, you very rarely complain about it, because it seems like we did it. I'll tell you what, like when I quit jobs and moved around and did all this crazy, stupid stuff I won't get into now, I never really felt like I was suffering. I mean, some things were painful and they sucked and it was emotional and all this other stuff, but it was kind of fun and it was kind of something I could deal with. It becomes hard when you're trying your best and other things start falling apart, because it seems like that's not your choice, right? You're trying your best to live a stable, normal, happy, healthy life, and other things just get in the way. And that feels like it's suffering, because it just doesn't feel like it's your doing. So with a diet, it never, I think for a lot of people, feels like it's a choice. It feels like it is an obligation and something that's being presented to us, even if we know it's probably better to eat vegetables and maybe eat less meat, possibly, maybe definitely eat less bread, less cheese, less dairy. Lots of stuff we could do, lots and lots and lots. For each individual is different, right? But we all know what we should do. We're not idiots, okay? We can understand things logically. But when you're pressuring, and you're pressuring others and you're pressuring yourselves and you feel like this is the image that needs to be maintained in order to be spiritual, in order to be healthy, I think a lot of people are going to fail to live up to that expectation. And it's not because we're just idiots or undisciplined or we just can't do it, can't cut it. It's because it isn't for us. Some people don't want to pressure themselves into doing things. Some people's inner child, their own emotional sensitivity, doesn't respond well to that. Right? So removing the concept of a diet maybe actually would be more helpful to people than focusing on the diet. Right? It seems like a paradox, but often a lot of truth in life is remove the diet from your expectations and you'd be naturally inclined to lean towards what you're going to want to do anyway. Right? At least that's what I've experienced, is that I tend to make healthier choices when I feel like I don't have to. And because our concepts of diets and losing weight, for example, often come from an insecurity, then maybe the spiritual concept, the spiritual perspective is the right one anyway, because if it's about accepting ourselves, it's probably better to lose weight from a perspective of self-love and to just feel lighter and better, rather than to lose weight because of an insecurity that if we just don't, will not find love or money or happiness or success or peace or have that image that we imagine ourselves to be, or to be that spiritual master that you're looking at on YouTube who has the six pack and the muscles, or if it's a woman, maybe they're all thin and toned. All that stuff is an image. And images, much like everything on earth, decays and dies. And eventually, it's forgotten about. But try not to take that too personally, because let's try to end on a positive note, which is Halloween. It's Halloween. So go eat candy and enjoy the candy, and try not to think too much about the fact that candy is not that healthy for you. Because one day you're going to die, and it probably won't matter that much that you had candy today. Okay? So enjoy your life, enjoy yourself, remove the concept of a diet, and you'll probably end up doing what you're supposed to do anyway. And it'll feel like it's your choice, which I think is what we're all trying to feel like is happening, right? We're all trying to feel like we're in control, even if control is an illusion. Let's at least feel like it.